The drums hit first, sharp, precise. A wall of sound rolling across Horse Guards Parade as the morning light cuts through London on a June day that was supposed to belong to ceremony. But something in the air is wrong, and the people who read royal events for a living feel it before they can name it. King Charles III stands at the center of it all, composed, still, his shoulders squared against the weight of the crown he has carried for less than 3 years. Beside him, Queen Camilla holds her position with the practiced calm of a woman who has learned to absorb scrutiny. And then there is Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, standing where the eye does not expect her to be. Not at the edge, not in the polite middle distance reserved for senior royals on display. She is forward, central. Positioned in a way that makes the commentators in the broadcast booths lean toward their microphones and lower their voices. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, rides in ceremonial uniform, every inch the future the institution is selling to the world. The cameras love him. The crowd roars for him. He is the visible answer to the question every monarchy must eventually face, which is simply this: who comes next? But even as the cameras track William, the whispers move toward Anne, and toward a name that is not even present on the parade ground today. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, is thousands of miles away. He is not in uniform. He is not on the balcony list. He is not anywhere near Horse Guards Parade. And yet, within the first 10 minutes of Trooping the Color 2026, his name surfaces in the commentary feeds because someone has noticed something inside the honor structure that should not be a talking point, and now it is the only thing anyone wants to talk about. Hi viewers, before we go any further, I want you to tell me one thing in the comments right now. Do you believe Prince Harry will ever return to the royal fold? Yes or no? Drop your answer below, because what you are about to hear may change your mind completely. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and stay with me, because this story moves fast, and you do not want to miss the turn it takes. Now back to the parade, because here is where the first crack appears. Royal correspondents covering the event begin comparing the printed ceremony briefing to what they are watching unfold in real time. According to reports circulating in the British press, the document handed to senior media that morning listed a sequence of ceremonial positions, an order of precedence that has remained stable for decades. The monarchy runs on this kind of order. It is not decoration, it is language. Where a person stands, when they move, who they stand beside, all of it carries meaning that no press release ever spells out. And on this morning, one detail in that briefing does not match what the cameras are showing the world. Princess Anne is listed in one role. The parade shows her in another. The shift is small, a few feet of physical distance, a reordering that a casual viewer would never catch. But the people who study these events for a living do not miss it. And within minutes, the speculation begins to build. Why was the Princess Royal moved forward? Who authorized it? And why does a quiet adjustment to one woman's position suddenly pull Prince Harry's name into a ceremony he is not even attending? The military precision continues. The flags snap in the wind. The horses move in perfect formation. On the surface, nothing is wrong. The monarchy is performing exactly as it has for generations, every gesture controlled, every image curated. But underneath the performance, something has moved out of sequence. And the people who know how to read these signals understand that in this institution, nothing moves by accident. One name on that briefing list does not belong where it ended up. And the moment the correspondents confirm it, the real story begins. To understand why a few feet of distance on a parade ground can set off a media storm, you have to understand the machine that nobody outside the palace ever sees. The Royal Victorian Order is not like other honors. It is not handed out by the government. It does not pass through Parliament. It belongs entirely to the monarch, a personal gift from the sovereign to those who have served the crown directly. King Charles III inherited this system the way he inherited everything else, from his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who used it for 70 years as a quiet instrument of royal favor. To receive it is to be told, in the institution's own private language, that you are trusted. And at the top of that order sits Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, who holds the title of Grand Master of the Royal Victorian Order. It is one of the most overlooked positions in the entire monarchy, and one of the most telling. The Grand Master sits at the symbolic center of how royal honor is presented, organized, and understood. Anne did not campaign for it. She does not talk about it, but the position places her, quietly, at the heart of the very system the correspondents are now arguing about.
We are celebrating something which is really an accident of birth over which I had no control. And for which I seriously owe one very important thank you, which is to my mother and father. And more than just the accident of birth. Because, really, thanks.
Here is the part that matters. No one was knighted on that parade ground. No new honor was granted. No ceremony of investiture took place at Trooping the Color. Whatever the commentators are reading into Anne's position, it is interpretation, not action. And that distinction is the entire battlefield. Because Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, already holds a place inside this system. Back in 2015, Queen Elizabeth II appointed him a Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order, the KCVO, a recognition of his service to her personally. That honor was never revoked. It did not vanish when he stepped back from royal duties. It did not dissolve when he moved to California. It still exists, sitting inside an institution that has spent years moving forward without him. And that is the thread the press pulls on. If Anne sits at the head of the honor structure, and Harry still holds an honor inside that structure, then her movement on the parade ground becomes a Rorschach test for everyone watching. Royal biographers have long debated whether honors like these are simply tradition, or whether they are tools used to signal who is in favor and who has been pushed to the margins. The palace says nothing. This is standard. The institution does not respond to interpretation. It does not confirm. It does not deny. It lets the silence do the work, because the moment the palace explains itself, it admits that the speculation deserves a response. But the British press is already split down the middle. One side argues this is tradition functioning exactly as it always has, a ceremonial reshuffle that means nothing. The other side argues that in a monarchy where words are rationed and gestures are everything, a change in position is the loudest statement available. Honors, this side insists, are soft power, not legal authority, not constitutional weight, just the quiet ability to say who belongs without ever saying it out loud. And hovering over all of it is Prince William, the Prince of Wales, whose growing influence over how the monarchy presents its future cannot be ignored. Camilla holds her place as the steady continuity beside the king. Anne anchors the working machinery. William shapes what comes next. Then the correspondents catch something else. Buried in the internal procession sequencing, there is an anomaly in the schedule itself. A timing that does not line up. A position that appears to have been confirmed, then quietly changed. One ceremonial placement was altered at the last moment. And someone, somewhere inside the palace, made that call. He is not there. That is the first thing that hits you when you study the footage. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, is absent from every frame, and yet his name moves through the commentary like a current no one can switch off. This is the strange physics of the modern monarchy. Absence does not erase a person. Sometimes it amplifies them. Harry is 6,000 miles away, outside the institution, outside the uniform, outside the carefully managed images flowing out of Horse Guards parade. But the empty space where he might have stood becomes its own kind of presence, and the British press cannot stop staring at it. According to reports circulating in the UK media, royal watchers are now treating Harry's absence as a pressure point rather than a closed chapter. The argument goes like this. A royal who leaves does not simply disappear from the story. He becomes a fixed reference point against which everything else is measured. Every time the cameras show William in uniform, performing the role of the future, the contrast writes itself. One brother inside, one brother out. One brother building the institution's tomorrow. One brother existing as a question the institution never fully answered. From a public relations standpoint, this contrast is gold and poison at the same time. It keeps the monarchy in the headlines. It also keeps an open wound visible to the entire world. And then the conversation turns, carefully, toward a name that changes the emotional temperature of everything. Diana, Princess of Wales. Decades gone, and still the lens through which millions of people read every fracture in this family. The global audience does not see Harry purely as a man who left. They see him as her son, carrying a story that began long before he was old enough to understand it. That emotional memory does not fade with time. It shapes how the public interprets every move he makes and every move made around him. The royal experts issue their warnings. They caution that emotional memory distorts institutional reality, that the public reads feeling where the palace operates on function. But the warnings do not slow the discourse. They never do. Meanwhile, on the parade ground, William holds his posture with the control of a man who knows exactly how many cameras are watching. Every movement reads as future-facing, deliberate, the bearing of someone rehearsing for a role he has not yet stepped into. Anne stands as the institutional anchor, the figure who represents continuity over drama, duty over performance. Camilla remains beside the king, steady, consistent, a fixed point in a shifting picture. And then it happens. One commentator watching the parade review notices something between Anne and William. A gesture, an alignment, a moment of nonverbal coordination during the procession that lasts only seconds, but lands in the middle of a media environment already primed to read meaning into everything. It is nothing, the cautious voices say. A coincidence of timing. Two royals moving through a choreographed event. But in a story this charged, nothing stays nothing for long. The non-verbal exchange between the Princess Royal and the Prince of Wales becomes the center of speculation. And the cameras, it turns out, caught all of it. Watch Princess Anne work, and you understand something the public often forgets. She does not need the throne to hold power. She never has. The Princess Royal moves through royal life the way a steady hand moves through a crisis, without panic, without performance, without the need to be seen doing it. For years, she has logged more public engagements than almost any other senior member of the family, often topping the annual count, while flashier names absorb the headlines. According to figures regularly reported in the British press, Anne carries out hundreds of official engagements every year, a workload that has earned her a reputation no scandal has ever cracked. This is the heart of the Anne effect. While the world watches the drama of departures and successions, she represents something the monarchy cannot survive without. The institutional backbone, the duty-first machinery that keeps the crown functioning when the cameras move on. Royal commentators describe her as the operational center of the working monarchy, the person who shows up, does the work, and never feeds the speculation engine that consumes everyone around her. And that is exactly why her position on the parade ground means so much. When a figure who never courts attention is suddenly placed at the center of a ceremony, the people who read these events know it is not vanity. Anne does not seek the spotlight. So when the spotlight finds her, the assumption is that someone, somewhere, decided she belonged there. Her presence is interpreted not as decoration, but as structure. A statement about what the institution values when it feels under pressure. There is a deeper truth running under all of this. The monarchy does not run on ceremony alone. It runs on something the public almost never sees, which is invisible administrative loyalty. The quiet, unglamorous year-after-year service that holds the whole thing together. Anne embodies that loyalty more completely than anyone. She is the proof that real power inside this family is not always the power that wears the crown. The contrasts sharpen the picture. Camilla stands as the symbolic stability beside the king, the consort who absorbs criticism and never breaks formation. William represents the strategic future, the modernizer, the visible promise of what the monarchy intends to become. And Anne occupies the space between memory and machinery, the survival logic of an institution that has outlasted every crisis thrown at it for 1,000 years. The British press understands this hierarchy, even when the public does not. They watch Anne not because she is loud, but because she is trusted. In a family where trust is the rarest currency, the people who have it hold a kind of authority no title can grant.
One you did miss was PJ and Duncan. They were very good.
No, they were.
When I was at school,
Sir, they were brilliant.
That's those
They
two.
were. we had a very brief music career a few years ago. Very life.
Then the correspondents catch the next thread, and it tightens the whole story. According to reports moving through royal media circles, an honors-related briefing note connected to the ceremony was revised while the event was still underway. Not before. During. A document inside the ceremony chain, updated in real time as the parade moved across Horse Guards Parade. Someone changed something on paper while the world was watching the horses. And the question now is what that document said before the ink was dry. The word that breaks everything open is not spoken by the palace. It is spoken by the internet. By midday, the phrase honor interpretation is moving through royal media circles like a signal flare, and once it catches, there is no pulling it back. What started as a few correspondents noticing a shift in Princess Anne's position has become a full interpretive event, the kind of story that feeds on itself and grows faster than anyone can fact-check. The royal experts try to hold the line. They go on camera, they post their measured threads, they repeat the same careful warning over and over. Do not overinterpret. Nothing formal has happened. No honor was granted, none was revoked, no ceremony of investiture took place. The Royal Victorian Order operates exactly as it did yesterday. The system is stable, the speculation is noise, but the public discourse does not want stability, it wants meaning. And it accelerates regardless of how many experts plead for calm. The Royal Victorian Order trends again, dragged back into the spotlight by a story that has almost nothing to do with its actual function. And right beside it, Prince Harry's 2015 appointment as a Knight Commander, the KCVO, granted by Queen Elizabeth II, gets pulled into the conversation and recontextualized in real time. Nothing about that honor has changed. The Duke of Sussex holds exactly what he held a decade ago. But in the heat of the discourse, the unchanged becomes the suspicious, and people begin asking what it means that Harry's honor still exists inside a system Anne now appears to sit at the center of. This is where the misreading gets dangerous. Anne's role as Grand Master of the Royal Victorian Order is ceremonial and administrative. It is about the presentation and structure of the order, not about judging who deserves to keep their honors. But online, the title gets twisted into something it is not. Commentators start describing her as a kind of symbolic adjudicator, as if the Princess Royal holds some private power to weigh Harry's standing and rule on his place in the family. She does not. The role does not work that way. But the correction never travels as fast as the rumor. Through all of it, the palace maintains its silence. This is not weakness, it is doctrine. The institution has learned across generations that responding to speculation only validates it, that the moment you explain yourself, you confirm there was something worth explaining. So the official channels stay quiet, and the silence becomes its own pressure, a vacuum that the public rushes to fill with theory. William, meanwhile, holds his position with the steadiness of a man who understands that future stability is built in moments exactly like this one. The Prince of Wales does not react. He does not comment. He lets the storm move around him while he projects the calm of someone who already knows how the story ends. And then the next detail surfaces, quieter than the rest, and far more troubling to the people who notice it. According to reports moving through royal media circles, a senior aide allegedly stepped in during the event to manage the flow of briefing information. Not to release more, to release less. The internal coordination suddenly becomes unusually restricted. Doors that were open in the morning are closed by the afternoon, and the people watching from the outside are left with a single, sharpening question. If nothing happened, why is the palace suddenly working so hard to control what gets out? The cameras catch William before they catch anyone else. The Prince of Wales steps into the frame, and for a moment, the whole parade seems to organize itself around him. This is the shift no one announced, but everyone watching can feel. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, is no longer standing in the future tense. He is operating in the present, here, now, at the center of an event that doubles as a rehearsal for the role he will one day inherit. According to reports circulating in the British press, royal correspondents increasingly read his presence at major ceremonies as something more than ceremonial. They read it as leadership taking shape in real time. Beside the public image of William stands the quieter strength of Catherine, the Princess of Wales, whose steadiness has become a kind of emotional anchor for millions watching from outside the palace gates. She does not need to speak to register. Her composure does the work. And in the background of the family picture, 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, exist as living symbols of continuity, the generation the institution is quietly building its entire future around. The contrast with Prince Harry writes itself again, and it cuts deeper every time. William represents the resolved future, the line of succession moving forward with order and clarity. Harry, the Duke of Sussex, represents the unresolved question, the part of the story the monarchy has never closed. One brother inside the machine, shaping it. One brother outside it, defined by his distance from it.
You know, I was made a private citizen by the royal household, not by Rabeck, by the royal household. I can't be a private citizen. I will never be seen as a private citizen. I will never be treated as a private citizen. Not by the media, not by most people, and certainly not by anybody that wants to harm me or...
King Charles III remains the sovereign, the constitutional center of everything. But the media narrative around his health has not gone quiet. According to reports widely covered in the British press, questions about the king's stamina and public energy continue to shadow his appearances, and every time he stands for a shorter stretch than expected, the speculation about pacing and succession sharpens. Camilla holds her place beside him, the consort who absorbs the pressure and never lets the formation break. And Anne, the Princess Royal, continues to operate as the institutional continuity figure, the steady mechanism that keeps the working monarchy running while the bigger dramatic questions play out above her. She is the constant in a picture full of variables. From a public relations standpoint, this arrangement tells a story without anyone saying a word. The future is visible, the present is stable, the machinery is loyal, and the one figure missing from it all is the one everyone keeps talking about. Then the discrepancy lands. Royal watchers comparing the balcony appearance to the protocol notes from earlier in the day catch a problem. The order of who stood where on the balcony does not match the sequence laid out in the initial protocol documents. The arrangement shifted, quietly, without explanation. The balcony order does not line up with the original plan. And in a monarchy where the balcony is the single most watched image of the entire day, a change to who stands beside whom is never an accident. A single photograph stops the conversation cold. Everyone who sees it thinks of the same woman. And she has been gone for nearly 30 years. Diana, Princess of Wales, does not appear at Trooping the Color 2026. She cannot. And yet her presence moves through this story like a current that never switched off, shaping how the entire world reads every fracture in the House of Windsor. According to royal commentators who have studied this family for decades, there is no understanding the modern monarchy without understanding the long, emotional shadow Diana still casts over it. This is the layer the institution can never fully control. The public does not process the royal family as a constitutional structure. They process it as a story, and Diana sits at the emotional heart of that story. Every time the cameras show William, viewers see the boy who walked behind his mother's coffin. Every time Harry's name surfaces, the global audience maps him back to the same loss, the same grief, the same unfinished narrative that began in 1997 and never truly ended. Royal biographers have long debated whether the brothers' diverging paths can be traced back to how each one carried that trauma. William, the Prince of Wales, channeled it into duty, into the institution, into a protective posture that hardens every time the family comes under pressure. Harry, the Duke of Sussex, carried it in the opposite direction, into a public reckoning with the very machine that shaped his childhood. 2 sons, 1 mother, 2 completely different answers to the same wound. The analysts issue their warning again, and it matters here more than anywhere. Emotional memory distorts institutional reading. The public sees feeling where the palace operates on function. When viewers look at Anne's position, or William's posture, or Harry's absence, they filter all of it through decades of accumulated emotion, and that filter turns ordinary ceremony into something that feels like destiny. Anne, notably, stands outside this emotional frame entirely. The Princess Royal does not trade in sentiment. She represents the institutional logic that keeps functioning regardless of how the public feels.
For me, security is conditional on having an official role, one that both myself and my wife wished to carry on, but then was rejected, not by Ravek, was rejected by the royal household. And the result to that is you lose your security. That basically says that you can't live outside of their control.
Charles occupies the hardest position of all, the bridge between the legacy monarchy his mother built and the modern monarchy his son will inherit. And Camilla remains the contested figure, the woman whose presence in this family will always be read through the lens of the story the public never let go of. Then it happens. A single visual detail from the parade footage begins moving through royal media circles. One frame, one moment from the procession. Something in the image catches, and within hours it is the only thing anyone wants to discuss. One frame from the procession becomes a global talking point, and what people believe they see in it is about to rewrite the entire story. The clip is 11 seconds long. By evening, it has been watched millions of times, and not 1 second of it has been explained. The footage shows a sequence from the procession, a moment of proximity between Princess Anne and Prince William, the kind of fleeting alignment that happens constantly in a choreographed event. But context has left the building. Stripped of its surroundings, looped, slowed down, and shared across royal media circles, those few seconds become a screen onto which millions of people project whatever story they already believed. There is no confirmed institutional meaning behind the clip. The royal experts say so, loudly and repeatedly. Nothing formal occurred. No honor changed hands. No power was transferred in 11 seconds on a parade ground. The Princess Royal and the Prince of Wales move through a ceremony exactly as their roles required. That is all the footage shows. But here is the brutal truth about a media cycle. Perception does not wait for confirmation. The narrative escalates regardless of what the experts say, and within hours the public reading of the clip becomes more powerful than the facts of it. From a public relations standpoint, this is the moment the story slips out of the palace's hands entirely. The institution can control its statements. It cannot control what millions of people decide a video means, and right on cue, the Harry discourse resurfaces. The contrast between his absence and this sudden viral image of Anne and William together reignites every theory about where the Duke of Sussex stands in the family now. If these two are aligning, the speculation runs, then what does that mean for the brother who is not in the frame at all? The logic is thin. The emotional pull is enormous. Charles and Camilla remain steady through it, but steadiness does not trend. The king and queen hold their formation while the interpretation storm moves around them, overshadowed by 11 seconds of footage neither of them appears in. William's leadership perception, meanwhile, climbs higher, because in a vacuum of official explanation, the public fills the space with the figure who looks most like the future. The royal communication strategy stays exactly what it has been all day. Silence. Containment. No validation of the speculative framing. The institution waits, the way it always waits, betting that the storm will exhaust itself before it does any lasting damage. Then, the next detail surfaces, and it changes the texture of everything. According to reports moving through royal media circles, internal communications were tightened in the hours after the event. Not loosened to calm the speculation. Tightened. Locked down. The palace media coordination enters containment mode. And the question that follows is the one that keeps the whole story alive. You do not lock the doors over nothing. So what exactly is behind them? Before this story goes deeper, do me one favor. If you have made it this far, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay close, because the stories we tell here are the ones that make you think, make you feel, and remind you that the truth is always more layered than the headline. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might be the one that sparks someone else's. The palace says nothing, and the nothing is deafening. In the hours after Trooping the Color 2026, as the speculation reaches its loudest point, the institution does exactly what the institution always does. It refuses to confirm. It refuses to deny. The official channels go quiet, and that quiet becomes the loudest statement the monarchy makes all day. To outsiders, the silence looks like weakness, like an organization caught off guard with no answer ready. But the people who study this family understand it as the opposite. According to royal commentators who have tracked the institution for decades, silence is not the absence of strategy. It is the strategy. The standard protocol of the monarchy has always been to never validate speculative framing, because the moment the palace responds to a rumor, it confirms the rumor was worth responding to. Silence preserves authority. Explanation surrenders it. The analysts call it an authority preservation mechanism, and it has worked for generations. The Crown does not chase every theory. It does not correct every misreading. It lets the noise rise, lets it peak, and waits for it to fall under its own weight, because nothing dies faster in a media cycle than a story the central figures refuse to feed. So the principles return to form. Anne, the Princess Royal, continues her duties without a single word of commentary, moving on to her next engagement as if the viral clip never existed. William, the Prince of Wales, returns to his structured schedule, the picture of a man unbothered by speculation he will not dignify. King Charles III maintains his posture of constitutional neutrality, the sovereign who stands above the noise by design. Camilla continues her public-facing role, steady, consistent, unmoved. And Harry, the Duke of Sussex, remains exactly where he has been all along. Outside the institutional response loop entirely, the palace does not address him because the palace strategy is to never address him, to let the distance speak for itself. But containment is not the same as resolution. The doors are closed, the messaging is locked down, and the public is left circling a story with no official ending. From a public relations standpoint, this is the calculated risk the monarchy takes every time. Silence buys stability. It also leaves a vacuum, and vacuums do not stay empty. Then, one senior commentator says the thing that reframes the entire day. According to remarks moving through royal media circles, this analyst suggests the event was never really about what happened on the parade ground at all. It was about something harder to see. This, the commentator argues, was not about events. It was about perception architecture, about who controls the meaning of an image after the cameras stop rolling. And with that single phrase, the focus shifts. Away from the parade, away from the clip, toward something larger and far more unsettling. The fight was never over what the world saw. It was over who gets to decide what it meant. There was no crown. There was no ceremony. There was no moment where Princess Anne placed an honor on Prince Harry's head. And yet, by the end of the day, millions of people believed something enormous had happened. That gap between what occurred and what the public believed occurred is the real story of Trooping the Color 2026. Because the truth is almost anticlimactic. No literal crowning took place. The Royal Victorian Order functioned exactly as it always has. Harry's KCVO, granted by Queen Elizabeth II back in 2015, remains untouched, unchanged, sitting quietly inside a system that has spent years moving forward without him. What unfolded was not an event. It was an interpretation, a power struggle fought entirely inside the media ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, the players each held their assigned roles. Anne, the Princess Royal, stood as the continuity operator, the steady machinery of a monarchy that survives by enduring. William, the Prince of Wales, stood as the future authority signal, the visible answer to the question of what comes next. King Charles III remained the current sovereign stabilizer, the constitutional anchor holding the present in place. Camilla served as the institutional buffer, absorbing the pressure that always finds the consort. And Harry, the Duke of Sussex, functioned as the external emotional reference point, the figure whose absence shaped the story more than any presence could. Over all of it hung the Diana legacy, the emotional lens that bends every reading of this family. Not an institutional action, Never that. Just the most powerful filter through which the public has ever viewed the House of Windsor, turning ceremony into saga and choreography into prophecy. Here is the core truth, the whole day revealed. The modern monarchy does not run on declarations. It runs on symbolism, on hierarchy made visible, on the careful control of perception. The institution rarely tells you what something means. It shows you an image and lets you decide, and on this day, the deciding got away from it completely. Trooping the Color 2026 becomes a case study in what royal observers might call modern monarchy perception warfare. The battle not over what happens, but over what people believe happened. And the unresolved variable hangs in the air. In a post-Charles era, when William wears the crown and the old certainties shift again, how will these honor interpretations evolve? What happens to the meaning of a title when the people who controlled that meaning are gone? So here is the question worth sitting with. Was the public reading of this event a simple misunderstanding of royal tradition? Or was it a rare, revealing look at how the modern monarchy is actually perceived when the pressure is on? What the world saw was ceremony. What it interpreted was power shifting in real time. If this story moved you, made you question, or made you see this family a little differently, then you belong here. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us for the next story, because everyone we tell is a chance to think deeper, feel more, and share your voice with a community that listens. Drop your answer to that final question in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear exactly what you have to say.